It's one of my most anticipated phones of 2025, and it's arrived in 2024. Hey, this episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by you. All of the incredible people who share content across social media and the amazing generosity of my patrons at patreon.com/somegadgetguy. More info on those amazing nerds later in the video. Okay, the folks at Vivo sent this my way to take on a test drive and review. It is the X200 Pro. You're going to be seeing it a lot on my channel. And well, actually, you probably won't be seeing it a lot, but you will see a ton of photos and videos from this phone. The Vivo X series promises a premier camera experience with ultra-grade performance to match. And we're going to jump right into design. Vivo joins the flat sides crowd, and for a camera-centric phone, I'm really happy to have a bit more grip on it than previous curved screen Vivos. It's not a total iPhone clone. The front and back taper into the frame, and no one misses the humongous camera Oreo on the back of the phone. Everyone I've shown it to, they know immediately that it's not an iPhone or a Galaxy. And I did have one parent at my daughter's school ask if was this going to be the new OnePlus, which was pretty nerdy cool. I'm going to try and condense a bit of this as the hardware has been out for a bit now in China, and when we're on embargo for a global launch, it kind of sucks the wind out of our sails for those first look videos. We always appreciate the liking, subscribing, and especially the sharing when we get to jump in and share our reviews too. Those of you out there sharing, you're doing the good work. The main aesthetic improvements over the X100 Pro, the screen is still the same 1260p resolution at 120 Hz, but the X200 Pro can boost a bit brighter than last year's phone. And we move from an optical in-display sensor to an ultrasonic. I was pretty good with the X100 Pro's fingerprint, so I can't say I've noticed a radical difference in the X200 Pro's new sensor, but I know ultrasonic will have its fans out there. I do like the subtle difference in haptics though. The X100 Pro having a nice wood block kind of resonance, almost a ring to it. The X200 Pro is just a touch sharper, a little more precise. And I also really like moving the IR blaster to the camera housing. And we've seen this a few times now too. It makes way more sense to hold your phone up vertically and see the controls on your screen than to aim the phone flat and then try to look across a featureless glass slab. Now the speakers are pretty good as a comparison. I find it hard to get too worked up about premium and ultra tier phone speakers these days. I mean, you're gonna see a random video clip of a phone playing some techno track, but you really have no idea if it's gonna sound good in your room. Against the X100 Pro, you tell me if there's some incredible acoustic comparison that I might be missing here. It's not that there are no differences between premium phone speakers, but once we start climbing to the higher end of the market, I seriously doubt those differences make much of any impact on purchasing decisions. It's just a silly little entertainment distraction in a YouTube review, because the X series makes specific claims about photography and content creation. Starting with performance, this is now the second most powerful phone I've reviewed in 2024 and will likely sustain as one of the most powerful phones of 2025 until MediaTek and Qualcomm launch next generation chips at the end of next year. I have a whole list of bar graphs and charts on my Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy, but consistently trying to keep the X200 Pro working at peak performance. Almost every single test that I ran, it was just a tiny fraction behind the Oppo Find X8 Pro, or they were in margin of error territory. The only test that the Snapdragon 8 Elite could catch this Dimensity on was my ridiculously long batch photo test. The Oppo still holds the record there. The iQOO 13 just barely nudges out the X200 Pro. Otherwise, MediaTek versus Qualcomm in one-offs like audio production or video editing, I think it's Dimensity's year. The X200 Pro delivers stunning results in apps like LumaFusion and CapCut that could likely go toe-to-toe with people editing videos on laptops. And yes, that matters. More videos are uploaded in 2 days to TikTok than the average player base of Genshin Impact over a month. CapCut has been downloaded over 1 billion times. Genshin has been downloaded less than 1 billion times. It matters that got a little snarky there. It matters that a company is making big claims about photography and content creation, and then they actually deliver the experience to back those claims up. And it's very likely that a Vivo will again replace my fancier Micro Four Thirds cameras as my B-roll and field camera for yet another year. Quick circle back, it's not to say that the X200 Pro can't game, but it does feel a little like a secondary use case for what this product is focused on. Again, the differences matter, and we should categorize phones more like how we label laptops. If someone needs a thin and light, you're not gonna sell them a beefy workstation rig. If someone depends on a dedicated GPU, you're not gonna send them a fancy flipping 2-in-1. So for this phone, it's things like user control. There is no monster mode in the settings, but there is a boost mode in the game panel. It just doesn't hit the same way an iQOO 13 will when you light up monster mode, or an Oppo will fire up a tier of performance in its high performance battery option. The X200 Pro is a bit more managed, but it really does not struggle with anything you can throw on it properly published for Android. It's a premium phone that can absolutely game. It just doesn't quite feel like a gaming phone, which is where we move to this big circle. The cameras are an interesting switch from the previous generation of tech. I'll be doing a full deep dive on the Patreon too. If folks want a good half-hour or longer chat on smartphone camera quality, those videos are Patreon exclusives. I'm still getting my sea legs on the X200 Pro, but I am still a little concerned about the main camera sensor moving down in size. The X100 Pro had an older 1-inch type sensor. The X200 Pro moves down to a 1/1.28 type sensor. That Sony sensor claims to soak up more light than a 1-inch type, and those claims seem to hold true. In early testing, as I drive both phones to their limits in a quick low light test, the X200 Pro is over a stop brighter here looking at the raw files. The aperture is also wide enough that the aesthetic differences, like depth of field, are likely going to be difficult to detect. It's not often I feel those camera sensor tech upgrades really catch the performance of moving up to a bigger slab of sensor. But this at least seems to be holding us in place for most photography situations. I'm gonna need to shoot a bit more before I really get a feel as to whether it's a proper replacement or if I start seeing some weaknesses in the strategy. I still expect a Vivo Ultra to arrive with a 1-inch type sensor built on this newer tech process, and if the jump in light is similar to this 1/1.3-inch type sensor, the 1-inch should be an even more significant upgrade. Reinforcing that idea, the new telephoto is delicious. Bigger sensors tend to perform better at similar generations of tech. The telephoto sensor on the X200 Pro is roughly the same size, just a touch scientifically larger than the main camera on the Oppo Find X8 Pro. Main camera sensor, companion camera sensor. It's likely one of the reasons why this Pro remains a triple camera phone as opposed to moving to a quad cam like the Oppo Pro. So this Oppo covers more focal length range than the Vivo, and in good light definitely wins in longer reach situations, but the image quality on the Vivo is stunning in that 4 to 6 times zoom range. It's just a touch long from my favorite equivalent lengths on portraiture. I feel like I need to zoom with my feet a little bit more, but it's a fantastic camera that I spend a significant amount of time using whenever I pick this phone up. That it also covers macro situations incredibly well is such a trip. The close focusing optics on this are delightful. And on top of that, we finally have another competitor for 4K 120 video. Quick tangent, Sony never got the credit they deserved for introducing that feature, and shame on techies who celebrated 4K slow-mo on more popular brands after shrugging it off on the Xperia as a gimmick. Slow motion at higher resolution is dramatic and bold and stunning. This is a significant upgrade that makes slow motion more usable in modern content. Even if you finish your video off in 1080p, it's going to look better for having been captured better than the potato quality most slow motion modes on phones still produce. And it works with both the main wide camera and the new beast of a telephoto. It's not a terrible crop when you go to zoom in. I promise you. I beg you, take a couple of very short clips at your next family gathering, stretch them to 1/4 speed in an app like LumaFusion, throw some holiday music on that footage, and you will drop jaws, producing a quick holiday memory. So far, my only gripe is the messiness of the Vivo Camera app. In a very LG adjacent way, the Vivo Camera app picks up new features, but also organizes settings in a somewhat unfamiliar way. Unconventional. I tend to live in the full auto and pro modes, but now things like night mode are listed under a new landscape option, which is not gonna be familiar. It's not gonna be easy to find the first couple times I take it out to shoot at night. Also, the street photography mode is clever. I like the layout being more camera-like. You know, the ability to shrink the viewfinder and get a big histogram is really nice, but it's a different take. And it's one that can get in the way if I need to do something like quickly launch the camera and move to video. It's really nice for photography and portraiture, but I'm not sure it's the interface I want to live in, so for now I'm digging through the menus to toggle it off when I quick launch the camera, and I'm only using it when I deliberately activate it. This is a brutal camera competitor, and it's crazy to see this phone with 512 gig of storage will likely be positioned close to a base model iPhone Pro or a Galaxy S25 Plus, not a Galaxy Ultra, the Plus. The Vivo will absolutely embarrass the cameras on a Galaxy S25 Plus if the pricing is anywhere near close. I gotta say, it's nice seeing some of those bigger tech YouTube channels finally admit where Vivo has been for years now as one of the absolute best total package camera offerings on any phone. The X series has always been brilliant. I'm kind of sad for the folks who have missed out. Moving on, the software. It's in an interesting place. I think it's funny. The name is still terrible. FunTouch. Not a great name for a skin. And I still think it's funny that for that name, it's the most conservative of the skins out there. There's a lot more color and playfulness on skins from Oppo and Xiaomi. But there's a charm to FunTouch where I still kind of like the vibe. It feels a bit more like Android 11, but now with much nicer animations, it's more fluid, and gestures have been added to do things like quickly move into split screen multitasking. Has a little side panel for shortcuts. Those are table stakes these days. It's caught up on a lot of the function added to other manufacturers' skins. Definitely still an acquired taste, and it's a truth that no one Android skin will be for everyone, but there's a bit more polish on FunTouch 15 that should help soften the edges. Every company is making big plays about AI, and this is still in a somewhat incomplete state for the global ROM. I'm gonna be doing a comparison video very soon, looking at Google and Samsung and Oppo and Vivo and Xiaomi for all the little differences that they're bringing to the table with very similar tools. The companies that are doing more on device versus the companies that are relying mostly on cloud data center AI. Stay tuned, the AI conversation continues to evolve. And that brings us to the battery, and it's solid. All big core chips, they hit different. They can suck down more power when they're pinned to peak performance, but they also finish tasks so quickly that you will save battery in the long run, running your phone harder. The Vivo here is no exception. You can drive it hard, boost performance, max out the screen brightness, back up all of your files over the 5Gs, and ramp those cameras shooting the 4K 120, and you'll nuke this battery in an afternoon. Or use it like a mainstream phone, and the larger battery this year should easily last 2 days of moderate use on a single charge. I can't comment as directly as I don't live in the region where this will be sold, but early tests in my local area, I'm getting decent 5G performance, though my Oppo tends to outperform this. Vivo is notorious for dropping big updates right after an embargo lifts, so it's something I tend not to test too hard until we get some of those updates. The X100 Pro turned into a pretty solid competitor as an international phone, even using it here in the United States. Just know that as you work that battery, it charges crazy fast. iQOO will still outpace it, but 90 watt ain't nothing to sneeze at when Google and Samsung struggled to sustain a third that charge speed. 15 minutes plugged in topping it off should easily get most people a whole day of use, which is where I feel we should bring this plane in for a landing. This is currently my favorite phone of 2025. I'm sure there will be some ultras that are going to give it a run for its money, but there's also a delight in hitting this bang for buck. It lives right on the border between premium devices and ultras. But compared to the most expensive phones we get here in the United States, it manages to do more for less money than what our ultra devices sell for here. I love the googly bits on my Pixel 9 Pro. Call screen, that's great, I love it. But MSRP on a 512 gig Pixel 9 Pro XL is gonna be about 30% higher. The chip on the Pixel struggles to keep up with 3-year-old premium devices running Qualcomm and MediaTek. The charging is slow, the battery is smaller, the camera hardware is older. This is a tough fight. I'm not saying people shouldn't like their Pixels. I'm just saying we're not getting the best competition here in the United States. The X200 Pro will do things for my work that I genuinely cannot do with a Pixel, Galaxy, or an iPhone. Acknowledging good competition is how we all get better products. And this is brilliant competition. I've just been having a blast swapping between the Vivo and the Oppo this year. I think it's a shame that Americans have no idea what this is like. And as I dig into some of these other phones and performance charts and comparisons, the folks who get to see the results of my testing first are my amazing patrons. All the folks over on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. The list of names scrolling by on your screen. These people are helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, as these videos and reviews and editorials would not be possible without their generosity. And they're basically the coolest tech nerds in the universe. So I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at somegadgetguy, basically everywhere. But these days I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a little more on the Blueskis, a lot less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Threads, definitely not on that other dumpster fire of a site. And I will catch you all on the next review.